Hello, my name is Chris, and today this is the first video in a video series that I'm putting together. Today I'm going to be discussing philosophy, relating it to physics, to create some sort of context so we can better understand what philosophy is. And this is, for me, part of the virtue mastery system, which is something that I've completed, and I'm putting into a package that I'm going to be offering at some point. And this is really an outlet for me because I have so much to express in this area, and I just really have this need to get it out. And today we're going to be looking at, as I said, philosophy, physics, and then I'm going to look at space itself as a way of illustrating what philosophy is, and what physics is, and what the difference is between the two. So when physics is creating descriptions of how things act, and it's creating more and more general descriptions with the goal of making one unified description that describes how it is that things act. And it uses tools to do this. So there's to make these observations, to make these generalized theories. Atom smashers and microscopes and telescopes, and these are the tools of physics. Contrasting that, we have philosophy, and just as there are different branches of science, and physics is perhaps the highest, we could say, in philosophy there are several branches. They're all important, but we could say that the highest, or the equivalent to physics, would be metaphysics in philosophy. And philosophy, rather than describing how things act, creates an understanding of how things are. Science creates a description of how things act. Physics creates an understanding of how things are. And the tool of philosophy, as I understand philosophy and practice philosophy, is phenomenology. And so phenomenology is a very different way of looking at things. So science is measuring. It's always looking at things in a measurable, observable way. And phenomenology looks at things without measuring them. And that is done with the mind itself. So the mind is the atom smasher of philosophy. And what the mind does in phenomenology is it witnesses without getting involved. It has an object. So we'll use space today. It has an object that its attention goes towards, and it doesn't get involved. And then what is revealed is the essence of what that is, so we can understand it. And an understanding arises. The origin of phenomenology is Edmund Husserl, and there's a lot to say about phenomenology that I'm not going to say, because in my view, which is a non-academic, sort of uneducated view, in a sense, like I haven't gone through the academy and got a PhD in philosophy. The most important thing about what phenomenology is, I've already said, and it's learning how to do it through practice. And what's needed to do that is a still mind, a mind that can be still. So one would be, in my view, better off meditating to still one's mind, to become still in practice, rather than becoming well-read and well-versed in the experts of phenomenology. You could learn everything you need to know academically about philosophy, about phenomenology, in probably a little paragraph. It's the practice of it that's important. So that's my heterodox view that is shared by very few people probably. So take that for what you will. So now we'll just take a look at space, how it's seen in everyday life and how it's seen in physics, and then how it's looked at in phenomenology. This will show us the direction also that I'm going with philosophy and the Virtue Mastery course, so you can get a sense of that, and the difference between philosophy and metaphysics. So in physics, space is observed through the things that arise and fall in it. There are measurements that are made, theories that are made about space, and we have, say, the theory of relativity, which will tell us that space is bent, and that gravity, and I'm not pretending to understand the theory of relativity. That's really not required here. What is needed is just to understand that in this understanding of physics, it looks at space as something that can be bent. It looks at space as something that has features and qualities. That's how physics ends up seeing space. And so it creates a description that allows one to have a description that can show us how things act in space and how space works, right? Also in everyday life, we see things and we see space, and we look at space as being the space between things. Space is relative to objects. So this is how we see space in the physics way, in the scientific observable way. But phenomenology is very different. So to do phenomenology, you can do it right now with me. The space that is present, the actual space, allow your consciousness to focus on it. And as we do that and don't do anything with it, just observe space. First of all, you can see that you actually can be conscious of space. You can be conscious of space. And when you do so, I'll tell you that after my reflection, what has become evident is that there are two elements to space. So you can see if you can concur with this. Space is featureless and space is boundless. So that is the phenomenology of space, and that provides an understanding of what space is. Space is understood through its elements. It is featureless and it is boundless. And that's the understanding of space. That's understanding it. That's arrived at through phenomenology. Now this is something that is, well, let's be conscious of space a little more and take note of the things that arise in it. Things arise in space and go away. Things are coming and going, objects, but they don't affect the space. The space is unaffected by those objects that arise and fall in it. They're immaterial to space. They don't affect it. They're irrelevant to space, in fact, because it remains featureless and boundless. Now, if we look at the mind in the very same way, and psychology can look at the mind and looks at thoughts in the mind and how and emotions and different mental states and how they affect each other, how they relate to the brain, right? So that's what science does. Creates a description that allows one to predict certain things. Certain thoughts will give rise to certain emotions, which will give rise to certain brain states. In phenomenology, we look at the mind. And by that I mean we allow our consciousness to focus on the mind. And when we do so, I'll contend. Now here, I've reflected on this many times, a lot. So I'm jumping to the end for you, and you can tell me if, digest this, think about this, if you come up with the same realization. And that is that the mind, thoughts come and go in the mind, but don't affect the mind. The mind. That that images can come and go in the mind. They don't actually affect the mind itself. And that the mind has two elements. It is featureless and it is boundless. And although the objects that come and go from the mind are thoughts and images, and with space, the thoughts that come and go are objects, physical, material objects we call them, or think of them as, that in fact, those things aren't affecting the mind or the space, and that in reality, there's no difference between the two. The space and the mind are the same. So, that's an introduction to philosophy, and this is the direction that I take in how I do philosophy. And the result of this is the Virtue Mastery course, which I'm going to be very excited to one day launch. But in the meantime, please come back and watch more videos, and please comment and like or dislike, hopefully like, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.